Hey everyone, and welcome to Skillcapped. I'm the King Live, and if you were following the VCT closely, you may have noticed that there were some significant changes to the game's meta over the last few months. These changes, at the very least in pro play, drastically changed how the game is played. This led to a couple of memes being created around how each of the regions plays the game, but we're not here to focus on the memes today. We're here to focus on what the overall meta seemed to be for VCT and how we can use that to help us win more games. Because at the end of the day, it is the pro players that dictate the meta in the game. These are the players who are playing the game at the top level, and generally to do that, they have to figure out the best ways to play the game so that we don't have to. I mean, let's face it, I don't want to have to think. I just want to copy what Sentinels does because clearly they're the best. So if you also want to just copy what the pros are doing so that you can bring your game to the next level, or maybe you're just curious about what the top level of play looks like right now, stick with us as we get into it. But before we do, let's introduce our question of the day, which is, which Valorant agent do you think would be the worst bus driver? Something tells me Jett would be running all of the red lights, but something also tells me that Brimstone would probably be talking about how old he is all the time, so I'm not really sure who to pick. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Moving on to the first very apparent thing during VCT though, and that's the Viper and Astra meta that seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Well, I guess it's not really out of nowhere. This has been creeping up ever since the Viper changes and Astra's addition to the game, but the point is, both of these agents are very meta right now and very strong. This is actually kind of nice for Viper players because she has for a long time been considered the worst agent in the entire game. And now that crown has been passed on to Yoru, but don't be deceived, this doesn't mean that Viper's played on every single map, just the one players feel like she's most strong on. Especially this is going to be including Icebox and Bind, although we do see some Viper on Split as well. A majority of teams were running Viper in this tournament, which is actually pretty funny considering how she's been perceived for so long. But the prominence of Astra definitely didn't go unnoticed either, especially for NA, running Astra on almost every single map. In the past, players considered Omen to be the best controller, and part of the reason for that is just how adaptable he is. But when compared to Astra in terms of support, Astra does everything Omen does, just better. Her executes are stronger, her smokes come down faster, her defaults are better, she can fake pressure better, she's kind of just a better Omen in every way, except for mobility. This is part of the reason that Astra was just the all-around favored controller during Iceland. She had a pick rate of 42% for the event, and the only controller that beat her out was Viper, but it really depended on the map. As I said before, it seemed like Viper was favored on Icebox, Bind, and Split, whereas on Haven and Ascent, Astra was definitely more the favorite. So if the tournament had turned out differently with Haven and Ascent being played more, possibly the pick rates could have turned out differently. This is something I was really excited for with Valorant though, that a game like Counter-Strike or even League of Legends really lacks. Because of the agents in the game and the maps that are present, there are going to be maps that some agents are really good on and other maps that those same agents just aren't. It's awesome to see that Viper is this niche pick for certain maps, and on other maps, it's just not her place. The same thing goes for other agents like Sova or Raze, which is just really cool to see. Anyway though, if you're going to be sometimes considering running a double controller team comp, that means that you're going to have to be giving something up in its place. So what exactly is your team sacrificing? And you just wait, because I'm going to tell you that right after this website ad. Want to be the best gamer in the world? Then be sure to check out skillcapped.com. We have up-to-date lineups, courses on how to improve with all agents, Smurf commentaries where a high-ranked player walks you through how to carry in your rank, and so much more. And don't worry, because it's all backed by our rank improvement guarantee, so if you don't feel like you're improving after using this service, there is literally no risk. Come join over 500,000 satisfied members, improve that KDA, and get the rank that you've always wanted at skillcapped.com. Link in the description below. Now, what are teams sacrificing, you ask? Well, in many situations, teams are actually sacrificing one of their two duelists in order to run these sorts of heavy support comps. And the reason for this is, if you think about it, duelists don't really bring much to a team other than being a body. This is why it's so frustrating when your duelist chooses to bait rather than entry, because their utility doesn't do much for your team anyway, so you'd hope that they at least be using it to take duels. This is something 100 Thieves actually grappled onto very early when they initially started running their single duelist comps. Running Raze, arguably the best duelist that offers the most for a team. But now we are seeing a majority of teams at the VCT Iceland actually favor the single duelist comp on most maps. Jett oftentimes being the one duelist, since she is widely considered one of the best duelists in the game due to her mobility and ultimate. Sometimes Raze and Phoenix would make an appearance as a solo duelist as well, but for the most part, Jett was still very prominent with an 80% pick rate in Iceland. Oddly enough, the team who ended up winning Iceland though, Sentinels, actually ran double duelist on every single map. Another team that seemed to favor double duelist though was NewTurn. So I just wanted to throw that out there so we all know. The point I'm trying to make here is that although double duelist still seems to be on top right right now. Keep your eye out for these single duelist comps and maybe actually not be too afraid to try running them in your games. Clearly, you don't need to have 2 duelists for everything, and you may still want to play differently with the one, but you might be able to make it work. Both Fnatic and Liquid favored the single duelist comps at times, and they made them work very successfully, so just because it's not something you're familiar with doesn't mean that you should count it out. Remember, the meta for games is always changing, and you can either refuse to accept it and fall out of the loop, or learn to adapt and constantly be improving. I'm a player who hates that Viper is in the meta right now, but that doesn't mean I can just ignore that it's a thing that very clearly exists. So if you haven't explored these new options, now is the time. Most players are still not playing Astra or Viper in ranked. You still have a chance to get ahead of the majority of the community on this meta shift. Moving on to the last thing that was noticeable though during Iceland, and that was the pacing of the game. Leading up to the event, the big talk that we kept hearing was whether this sort of fast play from Korea and EU was going to come out on top, or if a more slower playstyle from NA was going to come out on top. Basically, the big argument I've heard from top tier players is that in theory, over time, the slower playstyle should prevail because there are only so many big strats that these teams can pull off. Eventually, these strats start to become more predictable, and you've seen them before, which is why a more slow and solid playstyle should come out on top, because they're not relying on these big moments, they're relying more on overall solid play. This is going to be a harder thing to emulate in your competitive games, considering it does require solid play from all of your team members, but it is something interesting to keep in mind, as the prediction was that slower play teams would come out ahead, and in the end, with Sentinels winning, it seems like that theory was proven. At the end of the day though, the thing I'd like to share on to you is this quote I heard from Sean Garris the other day, which was, "At the top level, Valorant is a game of gathering info." Because to be honest, it is, and this is why slow play is generally going to be favored, because the more info you have, the better you can make decisions in the game. So although rushing may be the strategy that can catch players off guard, if you run into players that are not caught off guard by this, you're not going to be doing yourself any favors. And oh yeah, the last thing in the meta that we noticed is that the Judge is really strong. I think it's pretty interesting because although a gun like the Judge isn't as versatile obviously as a rifle, in close range at the very least it was often shown that it is far better than a rifle, and for that reason a lot of players are calling for a Judge nerf. It does kind of raise the question of whether the Marshall or guns like the LMGs are going to become more prominent in the game as time goes on, since the devs have stated that people are sleeping on these other guns in the game. And if you think about it, they sort of all do kind of have a place, even on a full buy rounds, as long as you know how to use them. So yeah, keep your eye on them as weeks go on. And lastly, remember, if you want to improve that KDA, win more gunfights, and get the rank that you've always wanted, then be sure to check out skillcap.com. Link in the description below. Iceland was a blast to watch, and I definitely had my eyes hooked on the event the whole time. So much so that it actually put me way behind on working on videos, but that's okay. It's cool to feel part of a growing community like this, so thank you all for giving me the opportunity to feel welcome here. If you haven't already answered our question of the day, which was, which agent do you think would be the worst bus driver? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. And if you guys haven't hit that subscribe button down below already, be sure to do so because it really does help us out. As always, I'm the King Live, and we here at SkillCap want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.